Radio check, radio check, radio check. This is the Explorers Pod over.
4, 3, 2, 1.
So, hey man, you're in Seattle, Gig Harbor, beautiful place. I grew up in Yakima, Washington, and spent a lot of time over in the San Juans when I learned how to sail when I was quite young. Taught myself how to sail. I was a climber as well, and set off on an adventure to sail around the world when I was 26 years old. So I know that area quite well. Beautiful place.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I moved here in 99 and I haven't budged since.
Yeah.
I mean, moved around.
Oh, what do you mean? You've been everywhere.
Just sound, but the Pacific Northwest, as much as we complain about the rain and the cloud and the gloom,
yeah. It's the place to be, man.
We had sun today.
Mountains come right out of the sea. It's gorgeous. Yeah. So, also, I was reading. I just want to check your background a bit. You went to college at Ohio.
Yes, I went to Ohio State University. I was there for graduate studies.
Yeah, and did I read somewhere that you were wrestling for the team there?
No, not for Ohio State. I was a wrestler back in Turkey.
Okay.
Through my college years, I rised up to second place in Turkey in the intercollegiate
far out
championship in my senior year, and then master's, graduate studies got in the way. I dropped out, started running marathons and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, cool. I grew up in a wrestling family as well, and wrestled in state as well, and nationals.
I was training with the Greco-Roman team coach for the national team.
Yeah.
And I was competing freestyle, so I had an odd, approach to my battle out there. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And I could throw people's game off quite a bit. They just didn't know what to make of me.
Yeah, right on.
I had fun.
Cool. So, and then you started climbing. Where did you start climbing? How did that start happening?
When I was 11, I was in a boarding school. My father called me at the end of the year and said, "Did you pass all your classes?" I said, "Yes." And then as a present, he took me up this 3,900 meter extinct volcano in south central Turkey.
Okay.
And that's how it started. I was, of course, exposed to outdoors and sports early on. Started swimming when I was 4, skiing when I was 6,
All right.
It's been busy. My father introduced me to all of these. He was of military background, and he retired as a 1-star general. And so,
That's cool.
I was active from a young age, and then it just kept going from there. Got into track and field, and then wrestling. We were assigned to Belgium. My father was working at the NATO headquarters for 3 years. I went to the Brussels American and got into cross country and wrestling there. I was very active, a very busy leather jacket by the end of my junior year. Went back home, stuck with wrestling and track and field, just the same. Mountaineering, I picked back up when I went to Boğaziçi University, Bosphorus University in Istanbul, and stayed active with them. What we were doing was mostly peak bagging, high altitude hiking, really.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I was reading books, right? So I kept reading books about the big walls in Yosemite.
Right. Yeah. I did the same. Started Jones, and I want to do that, man.
Right. And Bonington's books, they were the things to read back then. And by the time I got my master's at the same university in mechanical engineering, I applied to Ohio State University for a PhD program. And the first thing I did, I got there in April, and that summer I spent all of my savings to go to Yosemite
Good on you.
Uh,
Well spent.
That's great.
And then I came back with no money left, and then sort of got this assistantship going, teaching assistantship going.
All right.
And I never looked back. And I climbed big walls in Yosemite, the northwest face of Half Dome. I climbed in 89, and then in 91 I went back and climbed Salotay Wall.
Oh wow, that's
El
nice.
Cap.
Good on you.
Spent a lot of time in Seneca,
Yeah.
Seneca Rocks,
Sure.
as New River Gorge was being developed. Bolt sounds, bolt
Yeah.
drills going everywhere, up and down the cliffside. We were just in that mix. That was a very busy time for New River Gorge at that time.
Right.
That's 86 through 92 that I was in that area.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, you and I are close to the same age. What struck me about climbing when I really got involved, in my college years, was that it was really a great place to sort of get away. It was a place where I could find my solace and just go out and concentrate and it was a meditation for me and a great learning experience. But then climbing got so popular, especially in California with all the climbing gyms. You'd show up at the crag and there'd be like a lineup of people, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not here for those.
Climbing.
Yeah.
In rock climbing, the experience is a bit more intense, and one tends to focus in on what you can see in front of your face,
Yeah,
placements, and
exactly.
the route up, and so you're moving in the moment the whole time. And when I got nervous, I would consciously stop, take a deep breath. I would say, listen to the wind. And then I would pick background noises, listen to that bird.
Right. Yeah, it's great.
Just pick one thing to listen to, and then just peel away all the chatter and just focus on that. And that would just clean my psyche at that moment. The fear would go away, and I would start getting out of the gripped state and keep moving again. Fall to safety, if you will. Fall upwards. That's
Right.
really what it is. And that, I think, is a very meditative experience. It doesn't quite happen that way. We're walking up a big snow slope with backpacks, sweating, and toiling
Totally different.
on big
Yes.
mountains. That's a lot of time to reflect and say, why the hell am I?
Right. Yeah.
Well, Erden, did I say your name right, Erden?
Erden.
Erden. Okay, Erden.
Erden.
Yeah.
And the last name is Eruc.
Eruc. Okay. Erden, welcome. I wasn't able
Thank
to welcome you a while ago, and the microphone was not working well. But thank you for sharing your valuable time with us, and we're very excited to have you. We know that you're very busy with your preparation, and so we are here to welcome you. And I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your background, the dream. How did your human-powered solo circumnavigation come about?
My background, as we were chatting, I already revealed that I used to be an engineer, right? And I left that life behind in pretty much in 2001. But the main impetus came when I lost neuron crop while rock climbing together in Eastern Washington. I had read his book earlier, back in 1997. I was tracing my finger across this world map on the wall that was hanging in our IT lab in Silver Spring, Maryland, when I was working there. And this was a special map with the Pacific in the middle, America's on the right.
Right.
And from the east coast of US, I would trace my finger across the Bering Straits to Turkey, where I was from. And so one day I said, what if? Could I do this by human power?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, every unknown was a problem to be solved. So I quickly got into a problem-solving mode, and I'm an engineer. I'm wired that way. So how am I going to cross the Bering Straits? How am I going to get visas? How am I going to find money? So it became a quiet obsession. And the reaction I got from others was, have you done anything like that before? Has it been done before?
Right.
Of course. So you learn early on not to share with everyone. But books never say no. One of the books I read was Ultimate High. It was about the story of Göran Kropp, who
Okay.
had bicycled from Sweden to Nepal in 1996 to climb Everest.
Wow.
And he came to Seattle for a presentation in the summer of 2001. And I was a member of the American Alpine Club Cascade section. I was an officer of it. And we were on the organizing side, reserving the venue and such. Before the audience came in, we got a chance to chat with Göran. And his first two questions to me were, when are you starting? Do you have sponsors? I said,
Right.
I don't, right? So those are the tough questions you get when you find the right people.
Yeah.
You have to find such people. So he promised me to stay in touch. And then out of the blue one day, before that, we met again in Ouray, Colorado, doing an ice climbing trip that winter. He said, haven't you started yet? I gave him my excuses. September 11 just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, is the world a safe place? Should I even attempt this? So excuses were plenty. I was just not committing.
Sure.
And out of the blue, that September of 2002, I got this phone call saying, hey, I'm in the area. He had told me that he was moving to Snoqualmie, just east of here, east of here.
Okay, yeah.
And he said, I'll be in the area. Let's go climbing together. And so we went to Frenchman Coulee Vantage.
Yeah, I know it.
Had a wonderful day, fall day. Nobody was there. It was a midweek day. And after a full day of climbing, basically one more climb, and then we'll go type of mood we were in. He fell off air guitar.
Okay.
And that was a turning point for me. I said, that's it. Life is short. Got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat across the table with my wife then, my fiance then, Nancy.
Yeah.
We got married in 2003 after my Denali climb.
Right.
And I sat across the table with her and I said, hey, I've got to do this now. And she said, you will, you must. And we never looked back. So I cashed out my 401k.
Good on you.
And started making choices. We made those choices together, actually, as this thing evolved and just snowballed into a circumnavigation. We were making financial choices along the way, too. Selling a condo with Lake Union views to move somewhere a bit farther to
save money,
cut down on the expenses. Right. So she was holding the fort. So we had to sell the second car, cut all the expenses so that I could go and we could actually hold the fort with one salary. Mm-hmm. So all of those choices were made together. So I have great respect for her. I couldn't have done it without her. She's the foundation against which I bounce forward.
That's great.
So she's, I can't make this.
It's got to be strong to be doing all this over the years as well. That's an incredible story in itself, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, we got married late in life, and we were both two adults able to survive on our own. So together we are strong and happy, of course, but we don't need each other to exist.
Sure. Yep.
So I can safely take off and go, and she will be fine with that as long as she knows what's going on, even if I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
She's fine with that. She knows that I'll do the right thing, and
all right,
it'll be okay.
Atta girl. Well, before we flesh everything out, can you give us more detail about your Six Summits project?
Yeah, so can you just kind of tell us, what I want to do here is you sort of told us where you went, what you did. You did your first circumnavigation, what took 5 years. And I want to just, for the audience, because we're going to flesh this out a little bit later on, tell us a little bit about the Six Summit project.
The Six Summits project is in memory of Göran. So when the accident happened in September, I went to his funeral in November in Stockholm. And on the flight back, I drew the world map on a piece of paper, the proverbial napkin. and
Yeah.
marked the highest summits on each continent except Antarctica. I figured, well, I can't go there by human power, so it's too cold anyway. Uh, and then I traced the line between these, and I said I'm going to go to each one of these by human power, like Doran had Everest, and the mission was set.
It's unbelievable, phenomenal
And
dream to even think about.
So, first summit to go to was the closest one, the one that I could afford and get done with minimal preparation with the climbing gear that I had. And so, accident happened September. Decision was made November. 1st of February, I started bicycling north from Seattle.
Right.
By the time I got to the icy roads of British Columbia and Yukon, I was traveling with studded tires, towing a trailer behind me. When I reached northern British Columbia, it got so cold I had to wear my mountain plastic double boots on my feet while pedaling. So I had to learn how to ride the bicycle with those big boots.
Yeah, I was curious
So
about
I
that.
made it there.
When you were doing that route, this is what really struck me. You know, this is an incredible time to be going through sort of, I'd call it the Arctic tundra, especially when you're coming through Canada and up to Alaska and Fairbanks, where Fairbanks can be, I think, the coldest place on the planet at sometimes.
Yeah.
How extreme were those conditions? Obviously, this is your big first step, and this is a huge undertaking. You're basically going through the Arctic tundra in the winter, and I'm presuming you're getting about you're not getting very many hours of daylight.
See, I started bicycling in February. It was still cold in British Columbia on the higher plains of British Columbia. But as I went through the months, right, February was over, March started, spring was around the corner. So it was warming up as I went.
Okay.
And eventually it started easing, and I was able to make, good progress. But I did get some frostbite on my cheeks and such, and I had to cover up. I have some pictures of me with icicles hanging off my chin, breathing into my face mask. And I had to... wear a backpack with the water bottles next to my body to keep me from freezing.
Yeah, of
I
course.
was just practical issues like that. And then camping on roadside was not easy. It was never an easy proposition because there was snow everywhere. So I had to dig out snow, pack it down. And usually I went from one guest house to the next in these on the Alaska Alcan highway.
I drove that stretch, and it's barren.
A fun stretch.
It's a
When I
stretch.
got to Tok, I cut southwest toward Anchorage.
Yeah.
So I didn't go to Fairbanks. I went to Anchorage directly, did the logistics there. My bicycle needed work, so forth. And then I bicycled up to Talkeetna to meet my friends who came there. And then from Talkeetna, bicycled up to Petersville, just south of the mountain. And we started by hiking from there. I transitioned from bicycle to sled, and everything that was in the trailer.
That's a long
my backpack
approach.
included. Got loaded on my back or in the sled. 2 weeks worth of food, and my snowshoes went on my feet. My bicycle and trailer were taken away by friends, and then we started walking.
Wow.
It took us 2 weeks to get to base camp.
Yes, that's a long approach.
Yeah, and May 1st we started walking. May 14th we arrived at the base camp, Talkeetna base camp, not Talkeetna, Kahiltna base camp. And 2 other friends flew in. Normally people fly in to climb this mountain. Nobody does the slog like us.
Yeah.
And they brought extra food, so up we went to the summit. And 29th of May we stood on the summit. And 2 days later, we were at the base camp flying out.
Cool. How did you feel? How did you feel on the mountain after all that pedaling? Like, your friend who pedaled from Poland to Everest, he just felt that when I read his stuff years ago, it sounded like he was, by the time he got to Everest, he's totally primed. Felt easy for him.
Oh yeah.
Same for you?
It is such a big cardio exercise to get the load up there and then back. I was in very good shape on the mountain, and then I came back. we had done a VO2 max test ahead of departure and after I returned, and the difference was a solid 30% increase in my VO2 max. And my output was comparable to a linebacker, I was told. A pro player,
What a
pro football
training.
player. Yeah, so
Crazy.
I was doing well.
Good on
I
you.
am trainable. We proved that.
Yes, you can be trained. Your wife probably didn't know it, but now she does.
Yeah.
So, starting with your first circumnavigation, obviously, your boat was the most important part of this journey. Did you build it, or how did you choose marine ply with fiber over a carbon fiber, a new composite design?
Well, I didn't have too many choices. I did not know how to build a new boat, and there was a thought that I could use a pedal-driven propeller boat. Jason Lewis was already busy with a circumnavigation journey of his own by the time I started with this. And he had already gone all the way across Hawaii to across Pacific to Australia, and so he was toiling in his journey.
Yeah.
By the time I came back, so 2007, I started my circumnavigation from California. He finished at Greenwich, and I was able to talk to him by phone.
Okay.
Anyway, looking at his pedal-driven Moksha, the name of this boat was Moksha.
Yeah.
It's propeller-driven. I either wanted to build one like that, imitate him, or go to Oceanography Society in London that was organizing rowing races across the Atlantic. Early on, they were going from Canary Islands to Barbados.
Yeah.
Later, it started going to Antigua. And they had a standard purpose-built design. So the races were done between one design boats. Every race team would receive a kit, build it. They would come with identical standard boats. So that was the easy path to take. I had dabbled in rowing before. I knew what it took. So got one of those boats from Oceanography Society. They facilitated the purchase for me and connected me with the one who was selling it. And I got the boat in 2004 and used that rowboat to row from Canary Islands to Guadeloupe.
Yeah.
It took me 96 days in the spring of 2006. And I felt ready.
Right on.
So
Cool.
and then I could take on the circumnavigation starting at Bodega Bay.
Is that the same boat you have today?
Yes.
Okay, that's amazing.
2007 July, 10th of July 2007, I launched from Bodega Bay with the intentions of reaching Australia, and with my luck, turned into a strong La Nina year, and equatorial winds were stronger than normal. The southeast trades were blowing hard, and each time I came anywhere close to the convergence zone, I'd get pushed back.
Okay, yeah.
And so I ended up having to carry on west. The northwest monsoons I was expecting never materialized.
Right.
So I ended up north of Papua New Guinea, totally missing Australia by 1,500 miles or so. Yeah. And I was stuck out there 312 days, and I came within 165 miles of Wewak, port of Papua New Guinea, within 10 miles of a atoll, Ninigo group, just north of Papua New Guinea in Bismarck Sea. And I didn't have charts for it because I wasn't going there. And so I didn't have to, if I had today's mind and experience,
chart
I would
plotter.
have gone.
Right.
I had the chart plotter, but I didn't have the charts.
Right.
And so I would have beeline for that atoll and then dragged my anchor, caught the bottom, done something different, but I let my boat get taken by the winds, and off I was going back north, back across the equator, and typhoon season had started, and the first typhoon of the season formed near Palau, northwest of me, about 400 miles northwest of me, and brought northwesterly winds. So
Right.
with that, I was able to approach Papua New Guinea. Otherwise, it wasn't going to happen. When that moved on, became a Category 4 typhoon Ramasun in 2008. May.
Yeah.
So that became a super typhoon and drove up north toward Japan. It was massive. So
Wow.
um, I had to get off the water. So it was
Right.
being
Yeah.
unsafe. I was running out of food. I had 10 days worth of food left. And fortunately, we had Philippine fishermen in the area, and they were able to send one of their survey vessels. They normally look for tuna around the area, call the catchers, and then they load it onto refrigerated cargo vessels, and then off it goes to packaging, canning facilities in Philippines and places. So it's a huge operation. It's a fleet of them out there. So they were willing to help us. And somehow we connected. They came and threw me a line, took me to one of their reefer vessels, loaded the boat onto their deck. Off we went to Philippines, stored the boat there. I was wondering if I was going to have to start over again. I talked to Nancy. I said, I got to do this again. I got to never reach land. Nancy said, no, you're not. 312 days.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that again. Anyway.
Where did you where did you have the boat here in the Philippines?
In the Philippines, we went to Jensen, General Santos State.
Jensen. Okay. So to the capital.
So they took me directly there to Fabel Fishing Company was the host. They took my boat, we packaged it, put a cradle under it, put it into a container, and if I could leave, they told me that they fish there all the time. They go there all the time. They will take me back to where they picked me up.
All right.
And I ran that by Oceanarian Society and Guinness. Guinness rules said you have to continue from where you stopped. So as long as we went back to
Sure.
same spot within reason and just crossed my path at the very end, they were okay with that. So off we went January of 2009.
Okay. Can I jump in for
Christmas?
Can I jump
Yes,
in for
go
a
ahead.
second? So, I remember. I think you left in May, right? So you left in May. My question is, could you have avoided this this typhoon, this area, if you would have left a little bit earlier, and also by trying to divert south across the equator, maybe a little bit earlier on in the passage?
So
Or
upon reflection, all of those things are possible. Certainly, there are different strategies to attack this. There weren't too many examples ahead of me to sort this out. From what I looked, end of May departure, I thought would get me there, but the inland valleys were quite hot already, and it was blowing really hard. I couldn't leave in May, and so I got locked. And my departure from San Francisco, I was insisting on leaving from San Francisco. The tides at Golden Gate were also a barrier. I had to have strong outbound ebbing tide to jump on to help me against the winds to get out. And I tried again, what was it, June 13, 14, whatever the next tide schedule met my needs.
Yeah.
That was the same problem, blowing hard. I wasn't going to go. So are we going to postpone this another year? And I looked at other options. Can I launch from Point Reyes and try to do the logistics of that? And then a low pressure system came up the coast. And it just brought this counterclockwise spin on the winds. And for a change, I got a break. Took the boat up to Bodega Bay. I said, that's where I'm going to start from. Forget the tide windows here. Let's just get out of Bodega Bay. I had wind blowing offshore. So off I went.
God's gift.
70 miles out before the winds turned and the trade winds reestablished. And I was well out of reach of land effects after that. And so it worked out beautifully. It was a textbook departure.
Perfect.
The problem was by leaving on July 10th, I was close to canceling and putting it off by a year. By leaving on July 10th, I then had to dodge remnant lows that brewed out of south of Baja.
Yeah, right.
Across my track.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had to pass between those, and a hurricane formed northeast of
That's
me
definitely
after I
late.
had to drop south of those tracks.
Yep.
And then, of course, farther west, it delayed my crossing. The crossing needs to happen near Solomon Islands. You can't cross
Yeah,
earlier.
because you got the hurricanes in the South Pacific down by Tahiti.
So the cyclones that happen in the Western Pacific, in the Southern Hemisphere, drive those winds and change the those are what bring the northwest monsoons, right?
Right.
So with those, you drop into the Southern Hemisphere and you just sneak in before the cyclone season really starts. So I was delayed. That created a problem, and it just increased the level of risk.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning lesson.
I bet.
And, recently in 2018, one rower left out of Nia Bay. I'm blanking out on his name right now. And he made it to Australia to...
He left out of Nia Bay. Yeah, I think you were
Nia
talking
Bay.
about him. And he's got the longest crossing now.
Yeah, he broke my record.
Yeah,
I had my 312-day record is now broken. He
That's
has
right.
it by 336.
Oh,
More power to him. I think he can keep that record.
That's not a record you want to break.
No.
336.
It's torturous to
This is-
go
yeah,
out
it's
there
long.
Totally.
for that long. That's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Amazing. Hey,
So go ahead.
logistically, because it's great to hear about your trip and how it's panning out. But like, for example, logistically speaking, can you stop? Are you allowing yourself to stop on islands along your journey? For example, wait out hurricane season or typhoon season. Sometimes that could come into play. Like you might sit it out a month here, or do you always push nonstop on a sea passage?
No. You can certainly divide it up. Safety is paramount.
Right.
I gave 3 promises to my wife before I left. I'm not going to die. We're not going to go
Good
bankrupt.
promise.
I'm not going to lose you. So those were the
Aw.
3 promises. If faced with any one of those, I would have stopped and thought about what I was doing. So, I have to survive to save my boat.
Sure.
To row
That's
another
the number
day, right?
one. That's the number one
And,
responsibility.
So I can design this any which way I want. I'm
Okay.
not answerable to anyone. I do what I do, and then people take notice or not. I didn't get much media coverage, so I guess it wasn't that important. So I don't take any of that personally
Yeah.
anymore. I just want to complete my journey in one connected path. And that's all that counts, really.
Cool.
So it's good to hear that when you're rolling by a tropical island in the middle of paradise, you're really tired. You're really close. You can stop and get provisions and grab a cold beer. Yeah.
That would be an assisted crossing. If you are
Oh, really?
if you are after a non-stop unassisted crossing, you should be shunning all of these.
Okay.
Although on my Pacific crossing, when the Philippine fishermen started appearing around me, they some of them offered beer, and then I gave them I said, I all I have is a dirty T-shirt in return to pay back. So Captain took that, and I said, you're gonna have to wash that before you wear it. So we had token exchanges like that, and they were really fascinated with what I was doing. Clearly, as mariners, they understood the challenges. They would
Yeah.
come up to my boat and say, "Oh, how many are you? Where's your ship?" They thought it was a life rescue
Right?
or some sort.
Yeah,
they
you
couldn't
came
make
off the ship on
sense
that.
of what this was. So small.
Crazy.
Well, at this
So
time.
anyway,
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, I'm curious. At this time, have you ever had any knockdowns or capsizes?
I did on the Pacific twice. I was rolled. Never 360 though.
Okay.
So when you get sea state that is cross, so you get from the northwest, you get the swells from winter storms.
Right. Coming
And
down
then
from the
wind
Aleutians.
and the wind is coming from the east, northeast. And then when these two collide, the wave patterns collide, these peaks add and these troughs subtract, and and then the sea state starts going like this. It's not a regular flowing wave
yeah.
after wave. It starts doing this on you, so it becomes what's called boxing seas. So a small vessel like mine is especially susceptible to such state.
Mm-hmm.
And twice I was rolled on my side. Once it was nighttime. The boat went over what had to be 160, 170 degrees,
Mm-hmm.
and it threw me at the ceiling, and then
Rolled back.
down, and I was placed back on the mattress, and the whole cabin was rearranged, of course, in the
Sure.
process. And I put everything back where they belonged and went back to sleep. Tied myself down by the shoulder and the waist. I hadn't done that. So you don't want to get
As
thrown
if
around.
nothing happened. Yeah. Well, tell us about your typical day at sea. How do you schedule it?
We'll have to come back to Six Summits Project, though.
Okay.
So let's go to let's talk about the sea. Typically, I would wake up at daybreak, before sunrise, and I would take care of morning business and prepare my breakfast. By the time I eat my breakfast and get on the rowing station, the sun is about to rise. And so I would row and stop, take breaks, fix a drink, text Nancy on the satellite phone, and like little middle school kids, we would be texting back and forth. You'd be in meetings,
Sure.
and turn everything into a reward. If I want a chocolate, 2 more hours later, you'll get it. You want music in the afternoon, you have to earn it first, that kind of thing. The child in me wanted everything right then and there. The adults said, no, not yet. And so you basically, they set these daily goals and make the day enjoyable in that way, turn it into a game, and try to your thought process if these skeletons in the closet come out and you say, I should have said this, I should have said that. You get aggressive within yourself. You say, no, let's do the multiplication table. Start with 1 times 1 equals 1. Give yourself a task. Like, remember how I was listening to that bird sound in the background, or the wind?
Yeah, right.
You just have to find a task. Give yourself a task. Stop that churning thought, and then take control of the mind in that way. That's my meditation, really. It's just giving myself a task.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not, your classic focus on your breathing stuff, because I'm busy, I'm working.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I would tie my oars at sunset, and then turn west and look at the horizon, trying to spot the green flash.
Okay, cool.
I never saw the green flash
Oh,
on the
my
Pacific
God.
crossing. You wouldn't believe it. The entire circumnavigation, actually, I never saw the green flash. The only time I saw the green flash was on my first crossing on the Atlantic once.
Okay.
And then I saw it a few more times during my sailing outings recently, but not during the circumnavigation. It's probably because I'm sitting so low. And when I look at the horizon, to be able to spot the green flash, there needs to be no wave in between and no clouds in between.
Got to be the perfect condition.
So it doesn't happen that easily. And after that, I would fix my dinner, lay down, blog, write my right into my journal. I was running a Turkish and a site in English as well. I was post to one post into each, and some of these posts got long, and then it would take me 2-3 days to write one, and that would be my process. And by the time 9 o'clock came around, I would be tired and sleepy, and I would just sleep.
Question here, did you have any sort of wind vane, self-steering? So for example, at night, you tie the oars up. Do you have any way that the boat can sort of hold course with a wind vane?
No, I did not. But the boat behaved in a particular way. So when I moved to the cabin, the trim changed, right?
Yeah.
So the bow got lighter, bow got up, and then the boat was being put forward. Each time a wave passed, the bow would be carried forward. So if I set my tack to receive the wind from, say, starboard side, the boat would point to starboard, and she would try to carry a course 30 to 45 degrees to starboard. So she would get pushed, the cabin would get pushed sideways. She would try to turn, and then the bow would get carried, put forward, and then she'd keep doing that.
So,
And if I wanted to go straight, I would wake up 4 hours later, change tack, or jibe the boat, if you will, as a sailor.
yeah.
Change tacks, receive it on the port side, and then she would come back to a position that would be dead ahead, with respect to when I went back to when I went to sleep initially.
Yeah, right.
So that's the kind of control I have. On this upcoming crossing on the Pacific, I am going to install a tiller pilot
Yeah, okay.
and route my rudder
Yep.
more practically, and then just have an easy way to switch from manual control or foot
Yeah.
control, whatever we're going to devise. I'm also getting a new rudder system built
Okay.
that'll be retractable, because I was never able to deploy a drogue or a para-anchor from the stern. I think that's going to be essential.
Oh, for
on this
sure.
upcoming
When
crossing.
I'm looking at your next trip, I want to break that down as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the wind
so-
vane is gonna. I think you're gonna make some miles with that because you'll be able to gain them while you're sleeping. You'll stay a bit more on course, which would be quite helpful. So,
Yeah.
and that's
So my going back to the Six Summits project, after the Philippine fishermen dropped me off to January of 2009, I rode, I think it was 21 days on the Bismarck Sea, brought the boat to Papua New Guinea shores. My initial thought was, if I had the northwest monsoons for a change in January, I could come around the Solomon Islands into Coral Sea and carry on to Australia. Well, none of that happened because we put the boat in the water, and it was another La Nina year in a row. So initially I made some southeasterly progress, but then I got pushed west. Yeah, so it was not going to happen. We said, forget this, let's get on land and then we'll figure this out. So I took the boat to Finch Harbor and did the logistics in Papua New Guinea. I had to leave and come back with backpacks and whatnot to figure out how I'm going to relaunch the Coral Sea. So on the Coral Sea, I had to have the right combination of currents and winds. I had to sit back and time my departure from Port Moresby. So I had to leave, the logistics, come back at the right time. We walked the Kokoda track north to south after kayaking along the Solomon Sea shores. And then from Port Moresby, I relaunched by rowboat and arrived at far northeastern Queensland. It was a bit nerve-wracking to cross the Great Barrier Reef, but I managed.
yeah.
Wow.
I sailed that area as well. I as you know, I sailed around the world without an engine. So my boat had 16-foot oars. Different project. You know, if I've got wind, I'm sweet. But if you don't, you know, things can be kind of hard. But when I sailed around Cape York there, I had great wind, but there was crazy current when I turned the corner there. And I always sailed sort of the contour line, so if the wind died, I could throw the hook. But when I was looking at this trip for you, because this is where I understand that you started to employ sea kayaks along the trip, and I think it's somewhere around Cape York, you sea kayak down to Cooktown. Is that correct?
Yes, I brought my boat to near shore at the mouth of Escape River. The Coast Guard wanted me to go all the way to Thursday Island, and I wasn't going to take my boat anywhere near those corals and storm currents and 10 and 12 knot currents there. That was as bad as it got. I barely got through the Great Barrier Reef, so I basically negotiated that as long as I didn't get off the boat, I could have someone come tow me to Thursday Island. That's what we did. And just 200 meters from land, I dropped anchor, waited, and came, towed me there. We moved the boat, and then I got a sea kayak, because with a sea kayak, I could stay close to shore and get off the water in the evenings, and then I could negotiate all the reefs and weird contours around shore that way. And I kayaked over 2 weeks, I want to say, down to Cooktown.
I just want to commend you for this. That journey in itself, that area, which I think is quite incredible. It's no man's land, as you know, and very remote. You don't get
alligators and whatnot.
Totally.
Everybody said alligators, saltwater alligators will eat you.
the Crocs.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, Crocs. Yeah. I
Did
had
you?
to-
This is I have. You're the second person I've ever heard of kayak on that coast. I met another guy when I was in the territory, and he would tell me stories that he would actually see Crocs stalking him.
Yeah.
Did you ever?
Yeah.
have
Well, you have to be careful, and every floating object was suspect. I said, "Is that a croc? Is that a croc?" So
Right.
each time I saw something suspect, I would beeline toward shore, because once I get on land, I'm at advantage.
Right.
In the water, they are they have
they're
the
the kings.
advantage. And the shape of a kayak, looking from the bottom up, looks like the profile of a rival alligators, and these guys are territorial,
right.
especially the males, and that's the problem.
That's a crazy journey, man.
Yeah, it's not because they want to eat humans, it's because they want their territory
their
to themselves. They
territory.
want all the females to themselves, right? So
Yeah.
that's the drive in all this. So a couple of times we circled with two crocs, in two situations.
Mhm.
He saw me and I saw him, and maybe it was a female, I'm not sure. Saw it, and then it just went, and I beeline for shore.
Oh
and
man.
we separated immediately. And of course, when I set tent in the evenings, I would have to get away from shore above the tide line.
Yeah.
How,
They are
how
very
big are these
clumsy.
Crocs?
They can be 14, 15, 16 feet. They're huge, and they're
Yeah,
man eaters
they
for
can
sure.
be. They can
Yeah.
be, yes.
Humongous.
This is Croc territory.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
area. So, whew.
They had bunch
Hand-gripping.
of horseflies varieties.
Oh yeah.
And they had bunch of mozzies.
Oh yeah.
Mozzies. And sandflies. Flies were the worst. In
Sample.
Papua New Guinea, I got eaten alive by sandflies, and up to my knees, I was just, broken. Could not
And
stop.
sandflies, they
scratching them.
stay with you for like weeks, and the more you scratch it, the worse it gets. Yeah. They're
it
horrible.
was just terrible. And some of that sandfly problem continued into Australia too, but it became
Ooh.
more mozzies.
Mm. Stepping back a
black
bit.
flies.
Stepping back a bit. You tracked the Kodiak track in Papua or in
Kokoda
New
track.
Guinea.
Kokoda
Kokoda.
track.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh.
Kokoda. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry about my pronunciation there.
That's right.
How tough was that? And why didn't you climb the Cartizan Pyramid in line with your Sixth Summit project?
Karstens Pyramid. Yeah, Karstens Pyramid is in Indonesia, or in West Papua.
Yep.
Depending on who you talk to.
Yeah.
Right.
The logistics of going to Karstens would have been just prohibitive. I just kept asking, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? And nobody could give me a straight answer. And I basically did not want that summit to stop my journey. My goal was to do circumnavigation and do the 6 summits along the way. So the choice was mine, really. Is it Oceania or Kosciuszko for Australia? Take your pick. It doesn't matter, really. It would have been very interesting and satisfying to go to Karstens and making that trek into the jungles, meeting the tribes and being asked bribes from sometimes protective tribe members. And, it was complicated. If you had a guide, one guide had to hand you off to the guide from the next tribe, and you had to have a way of paying that next person or the tribe, and it's just going to be one bribe after another.
Yeah.
Call it a fee, call it a bribe, who cares? It is a challenge, and I just did not have the resources to sort this out. No contacts in Indonesia, no contacts with the tribes, and no one was helping in the process. Everybody, if they did Karstens, would take a chopper to base camp and then hang out at the base camp, climb, come back down, fly out. So they bypassed all the social interactions that would happen along the way. So crossing from one valley to the next, one tribe to the next, each speaking their own native language. Papua New Guinea has over 100 languages and such tribes.
Yeah.
It is a difficult terrain to negotiate. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Took the easy way out, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read, what's his name? Who writes the every year for Everest? He's talking Alan
Arnett.
Arnett. Yeah, I was reading
Yes.
one of Alan's articles about when he climbed that summit, and they were in a village. He has a picture, and they're all the villagers, and you know how they are, the tribal people, and they're all dressed up, and they got guns. And he said, we got to this place where we're supposed to have our jump off spot for our helicopter, and the chief sat down with us and said, hey, here's the deal. Either you pay us, because the helicopter fee, with what you're paying a helicopter, or we'll kill you. Basically, that was the story, right? So they had to, pay the extortion and pay the tribe.
Yeah.
But crazy, wild west stuff in that area. And
Yeah.
It's a different world.
yeah.
And so that was the reason, really. And so I turned my eyes to Kosciuszko. My wife by then had transferred her work to Brisbane. And she was working for an international company out of UK, and they had a project in Australia. Had just bought a company there, and she was part of the operations. So Brisbane became my base camp while I was traveling through to Papua New Guinea and then Australia. She came more than once to find me on the roads. So once I got to Cooktown, I received my bicycle, got rid of the sea kayak, and bicycled coastal Australia clockwise.
Oh,
and
okay.
eventually worked my way to Kosciuszko. Nancy came. We walked up that together. It's a 6,000 foot small, 2,000 meter peak.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a nice walk. Came back down, and that was April of 2010.
So
Then I bicycled west from there.
yeah, how did that feel, going from sea legs to land and
Getting
pedaling
on
every
your
day?
bike. You've been at sea for,
It is much more manageable than you would think, because with bicycles, you get tired, you stop, get off, rest, pull over. You may cover fewer miles early on. It takes time to get the logistics of the vessel done anyway, so it takes at least a couple of weeks of downtime. And during that, the sea legs go away. The first 2 days or so, you get the disease as you're trying to tie your shoes, and it just subsides after that. It just disappears.
Okay.
Yeah. I may get seasick on the first couple of days leaving as well, but my, lizard brain has adjusted by now.
Yeah.
It doesn't get that bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, your logistics, what happens to your boat? How do you get it to the west side of Australia? You just put
So what you have to do on Thursday Island, actually, I bought a used trailer, and that's what we loaded up on a
like just a truck trailer, car trailer.
It was not it was actually a boat trailer.
Yeah.
And that we could tow around and get it onto a platform, not a enclosed container, and that went on top of a barge. And that's how they took it down to Townsville.
Okay.
And then once in Townsville, it got into a container.
All right. Yeah.
And locked up until it was time to ship it to the other side. So typically, it either gets on rail or a ship gets delivered to the other side. And in most places, I don't get a trailer. This one, I happen to luck out. We essentially look for a, body shop or a welder or someone, and then I give them specs, dimensions, and describe them and just sketch it out. And then we work together, and the welder builds me a cradle. And then we can lift the boat, put it on the cradle. Once it's on a cradle, then you can get a forklift under that and then move it around.
Yeah.
And then with that, together with the cradle, it gets stuffed into a 40-foot container, tied down. And once the lock goes on the container, I can leave. That container can get stored in a container yard for as long as necessary. You typically buy the container and then sell it on the other side.
Right.
There's a trade for that. That's how they manage it. You end up having to pay it like a deposit on the container, right?
Yep.
And it's like a bottle deposit. It gets to the other side, and then there you take it out of the container, stevedoring companies that do regular shipping are more than willing to help you with all this stuff. It does cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
Much
it's
of my expenses
project
were
within
for
the
that.
project. There's a lot of work.
Yeah. So logistics was the biggest headache in this journey. You get the boat into a container. Once that is secured, in the time that it takes to get the boat in a container and whatnot, the bicycle arrives. I typically have the bicycle conditioned and boxed and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Everything arrives with my panniers and trailer and everything, and I start bicycling.
Yeah, and
From
hopefully,
there, by the legs are gone. I am somewhat adjusted, and I can start bicycling. And I use the journey as training in
Yeah,
all of these
course.
cases.
Of course.
So get stronger and more supple as
Mhm.
time goes on.
After summiting Australia's highest mountain and then crossing Australia,
Kosciuszko.
you
Mhm.
set off to row the Indian Ocean, in which you rowed, I believe, in 162 days, considerably faster than the Pacific. I think it was the. Sorry.
37 or something.
Okay.
So I wanted to go to Kenya, and I went and got in touch with the International Maritime Organization, asking for information on pirates and where they were active, what to do, and they said, we don't recognize you as a legitimate shipping company, maritime company, so they refused to give me information. I went to my dad. I said, Dad, hey, why don't you go to the Turkish Navy and ask? And so he went to the commander of the Navy, and the Turkish Navy had a frigate in those waters,
Okay.
and an international combined task force, they call it. Combined task force was in operation. All nations with interest in those with stake in those waters had sent warships, and every 4 months they would change command. The flagship would change nationality. And with my luck, as I was approaching Africa, the flagship became the Turkish frigate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was exchanging emails with the rear admiral. He was telling me where the pirates were active, spotted, and what countermeasures were taking.
Right.
Instead of going to Kenya as I had planned, we agreed that I should stay away from the piracy areas
Mm-hmm.
and pass close to Madagascar and head for Mozambique.
Yeah.
And then as I was going west toward Tanzania, I was instructed to go between the Comoros Islands because it would be safer. As I did, I got yanked around by big eddies. These eddies form in the Mozambique Channel, and then they migrate.
Yeah.
They don't stay in one place either because of the South Equatorial
This-
current coming and hitting African mainland. Splits north and splits south. So
Right. This
It's
is you
crazy
got
eddies.
two big oceans here. When you came across the north tip of Madagascar, what was that like? I'm guessing that the sea was quite sort of awesome there with the two big.
it was fast moving water,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't threatening at all. It was a very controlled passage. I was able to rise, and I was covering 80 miles a day, moving quite fast through
Nice.
there.
4 or
and
5
then
knots. Yeah.
What was your speed during this passage?
Yeah, coming across, it
typically
seemed like
my
this was a
pace-
fast trip for you. So you made good time
Typic-
coming across.
typically my pace is walking pace and not and a half.
Yeah.
And I plan my crossings on 30 miles a day, 1,000 miles a month is what I plan for. And then typically I go a bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
It all depends on the conditions, of course. When I have following seas and currents, things can get up to 50 miles a day easily.
Right.
My record is about 120. I don't remember the exact
That's
number. It was
incredible.
just in the Caribbean
You
as
got
I was
the-
passing north of Isla de Margarita, north of Venezuela. I had the current
Gulf Stream.
inside the Caribbean, just
Yeah.
barreling past Trinidad and getting really squeezed there.
Yeah.
Of course,
Far
as soon
out.
as I passed the island, it slowed down.
I bet. Yeah. When you're going that fast, I bet you're smiling. It's nice to be
Yeah.
going that fast, eh? Okay.
Yes.
Where
Yeah,
were we?
so
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and basically the currents grabbed the big eddy grabbed me in the Mozambique Channel, and I could not go toward Mozambique anymore. It was taking me offshore at 2 knots. I couldn't fight that, so I fought to the edge of it, and I broke free toward Madagascar, and went southeast toward Madagascar and landed at Majanga, and multiple water spouts were forming around me. The cyclone season had started. It was November of 2010.
Okay.
Or no, 2011 by then. And it just became dangerous. I decided to take the boat off the water. So got there in November, end of November of 2010. It was 2010. And then returned 2011 March to Madagascar. And in 20 days, I think, I crossed the Mozambique Channel to Mozambique, to Angoche.
Beautiful area.
And then dealt with the logistics of that and bicycled north through Mozambique and Tanzania to border with Kenya to climb Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. So let me jump in here for a second. Are you
Sure.
familiar with Rian Manser?
Rian Manser, yeah, I know his name.
Okay, yeah. So Rian, you know, he rode with his fiancee at the time from Vasti is her name. They rode from Africa to New York City, but this was years later in some of his adventures. But one of his first things that he did, he was on our show a few weeks back. Lovely guy, really cool. Anyway, his first big adventure was he circumnavigated Africa on a bicycle. And man, does he have the craziest stories, and probably a lot like yours, but Africa is a really different place, and he's got some great stories. I'm wondering if you have any crazy stories from this section of your trip, being on the road.
Oh, so many stories, but I think the biggest story was how threatening those big buses were in Tanzania.
Okay.
They would just barrel down the road at breakneck speed because they were going to get the next customer before the one behind them chasing him would get it, and then they would go boom, 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 at 120, 140, kilometers an hour. These are big buses, and then basically, if you have pedestrians or bicyclists on the path, they need to get out of the way.
Out of the road.
Yeah,
Get out of the way.
So I got pushed off the road more than once, and I crashed my bicycle and really did a number on my entire forearm here. Could have broken bones, didn't. And I was swollen and black and blue for a good 3 weeks after that when I was bicycling through Tanzania. So that's, I think, a problem. A story, multiple stories like that could be told. Just had to be mindful of where I camped, and I had to negotiate wildlife. Fortunately, I was bicycling south in the dry season, so the animals had
they're not
the
migrating.
opportunity to get away from the highway. Otherwise, when the fields are flooded, they get on the highway to walk up and down the road.
Wow.
And this includes a whole parade of animals.
Wow.
Including lions and whatnot. So
Man.
So,
Tell us about your climb.
Kilimanjaro,
in Kilimanjaro, yes.
Climb Kilimanjaro with your father. What a cool...
Yeah, you were with your father.
Yeah, my father got me up my first mountain at age 11, and then I climbed up his probably last serious climb at age 79.
Wow.
So it was a good
What a
bookend to our
start.
relationship, if you will. He's still alive, but he doesn't do as serious stuff anymore. He was born in 33, so he's pushing it now.
How old is he now?
7.
Well, he was born in 33. You've got to do the math. I can't say off the
Well,
top
I'm
of
not
my
that
head.
good at
So
math.
33, what, 88?
Yeah. Wow.
88,
Far up.
yeah. So he made it up.
Good.
We paced it, and we made it up. Of course, I am bicycled from far away, and I'm in good shape. A dozen friends came. We raised some funds to build a classroom at the Matebas Middle School in Arusha, where the children of the porters go to school. Just try to do our part in helping the community. And it was an interesting climb. You go from low-lying tropical setting through brush to alpine plants, and then to nothing, just volcanic rubble. It's a very interesting peak in that sense. Very little ice left at the top. When we went up, it was just like a handful up there.
There is an ice. There's an ice
big
shelf.
ice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a glacier up there, but the remnant permanent glacier up there. It's like an ice cube now.
Right.
At the top.
Wow, what a father and son.
What a great
trip.
reunion
That
story.
was
Perfect
great.
for your trip.
So we came off the mountain, and my friend Norman Watts came from Washington, D.C. We had climbed earlier when I was working in Washington, D.C. for 6 years. And he was the one that kayaked with me along the Solomon Sea shores of Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
He came to Africa, and we bicycled all together from Arusha down Tanzania into Zambia, southwest, all the way to Namibia. And Luderitz is where we called it done.
Okay.
The logistics of my rowboat happened from Mozambique to Walvis Bay, just north of Luderitz, and then we had to put it on a truck and bring it down to Luderitz Bay for better departure conditions.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to shipwreck on the Skelton coast, right? At Walvis Bay, the coastline turns northwest a bit. From Luderitz Bay, it goes north. So with the winds, if any wind were to turn inward toward shore, toward the desert, I would have the chance to fight for distance to get away from shore with that. And that's what we did. I left from Luderitz 154 days, was it? Something like that, 56, something like that. Later, I arrived at Venezuela. I wanted to pass north of Trinidad and get into Caribbean Sea, but I couldn't. The winds pressed me down. I had to pass south of Trinidad between Venezuela and Trinidad through a very narrow gap with strong tides.
Yeah,
and that popped me into the bay just west of there between Venezuela and Trinidad. So I fought and worked my way into a fishing village, Guiria, in eastern Venezuela. I couldn't clear this one peninsula to exit from there into the Caribbean Sea. So from there, I took me 10 days to exit Venezuela after that. It was a very quick process. A friend of mine from college days was actually on a project there, working at a petrochemical plant, the big refinery. And he came and he assigned a translator to me, and we put the boat on a truck, took it to a marina where it could be behind fenced protection. And then I went back to Guiria, the local cycling club, which was run by the bicycle shop there. They loaned me a bicycle and 2 bicycle riders, and gave me the club uniform. And the 3 of us bicycled from Guiria to Carupano, on the north side of Venezuela. And then from Carupano, I took off again by rowboat.
This is, you provisioned, I'm presuming you provisioned, buy all your gear, you do an 80-mile bike into Venezuela? The
bicycle was borrowed, so it was an 80-mile day, I think. Something like that. In one go, we pushed and got across. I was riding light, left everything on the boat. All I had to wear was the jersey uniform that they gave me for the club, and take water, and then we purchased some food along the way. We really didn't need much. We were riding light, and so we covered that distance in no trouble. And the boat got transferred, trucked again to Carupano from that marina where we left it, and then I launched from there, northwest, across the Caribbean Sea, went north through Yucatan Channel, and I was trying to find a landing spot. I lined up with Cameron, Louisiana.
Yeah, I saw that.
There's a
Yeah.
small channel there that comes up, the Calcasieu Pass, that goes up to Lake Charles.
Right.
And so I was able to dive in through there, and we had to bring a customs officer from Lake Charles. He came down saying, "Well, were you port shopping?" And he was suspicious. Why are you coming here? You're supposed to go to a port of entry.
Oh yeah, I've had that
And
many
then-
times.
So he was questioning my motives, and he came and he saw the rowboat, and he said, "You know, this is all I could do. I'm sorry, I couldn't go to Houston or someplace." And so he empathized. I was a permanent resident back then, and my stay out of the country had extended into 14 months. By then, I had to
A little bit
do
over.
the in and out every year
Mhm.
to keep it current. So he was. We were sitting in his.
Now you're in hot
vehicle.
water.
You're right. So
Right.
he goes, "I am putting this note here," and he put a card in there that I was supposed to show, and you will go to deportation hearings. And when you stand in front of the judge, he's going to ask you whether you want to keep your permanent residence, whether you intend to live in the U.S., what your intentions are. Do you have any financial interest outside the country? You're going to say yes, no, da, da, da.
Right.
And basically, he coached me on what to say.
Okay, cool.
Should this go to the judge? And then the next day, I was supposed to go pick up my passport from him after the stamping and such had happened. We drove all the way up there, went to the gate, and he came out. He said, "I talked to my office and shared your story with everyone." And he said, give me that passport." He was going to stamp it, and he took the passport and with that slip inside it, form number, whatever, I can't remember
Mhm.
now. He pulled that out. He said, ripped it up. He said, "Welcome to the United States."
Yeah.
I was set free and go. So that
Nice.
was a beautiful, beautiful.
Wow,
Cool.
beautiful story.
Yeah, so it doesn't happen often, but
Yeah.
sometimes bureaucracy says, "Okay, you're all right. You're all right.
Yeah.
We'll tolerate you."
Right. Well, I probably have some similar stuff to you because, as I told you, I was sailing without an engine. For example, I came across one time I came from Fiji, and I came across Three Kings on the top of New Zealand, coming to New Zealand, and I broke my forestay at the masthead. And whoa! Anyway, I was keel step, luckily. And so I did a jury rig, and I tried to get in the Bay of Islands, but it was a southwesterly blowing, and I just couldn't make. I couldn't. My rig was too loose. I couldn't get in. I couldn't get the angle, so I just kept sailing as hard in the wind as I could, to where New Zealand came out to the east, and I landfalled wherever I could, and I ended up in a place called Tutakaka, and New Zealand is hardcore when, New Zealand, Australia, they're pretty hardcore with their
Yeah.
customs. These guys came to my boat, they were pissed because I had to call them, it's not a check-in
They,
port.
they have the quarantine requirements, right? So
Yeah.
they're very strict about that stuff.
Oh man, they were pissed. And then they get on my boat and they look around and say, "Hey man, I'm sailing without an engine." And this would happen to me a lot. I'd bring them downstairs and they really didn't believe me. And they'd look down in the engine room, they'd look, "Oh, okay, yes, no problem." All of a sudden everybody's nice, we're having tea. So once people really realize like how hard it is, how you got there, sometimes they sort of change their attitude.
Yeah. Well,
So I've been very
looking
lucky.
back, yeah, I know. I've heard the stories and I believe it. Well, looking back at all those sea miles, what was your biggest sea and what was your hardest time during your circumnavigation?
Well, the biggest sea was clearly the Pacific. And each sea, each ocean has its own character.
Oh, yeah.
I call the Pacific capricious,
Yeah.
and
name.
the Indian Ocean aggressive,
Hmm.
and the Atlantic honest.
Okay.
Wow.
So with the Atlantic, you can plan things; it'll go according to plan, pretty much.
Right.
But the Indian Ocean, you'll get abused.
Yeah, it's
And,
big seas. It's blowing hard there every day.
rough cross seas, weather coming from the southwest, colliding with waves from the east, southeast, and they were really rearing up to my port side, and then crashing down toward me and rocking the boat. I broke 3 oars on the Indian
Ooh.
Ocean. Broke one on the Pacific, 3 on the Indian Ocean. I had to figure out a way to fix an oar so I could have a spare.
All right.
Eventually, I did. Had I broken yet another one with one oar, I would have had big trouble.
Wow.
You have
Be
to
a bad
launch
day.
with. You have to launch with the repair kit and
Yeah.
some cloth, some epoxy, and so forth.
Yeah.
I had oars out of, I don't know if you know the Sawyer oars. My oars were 16-foot Sawyers out of Sawyer, Oregon, or the company out of Oregon. They eventually broke, and I put them together many times. But yeah, I can imagine breaking my oars on a boat that's, that's your transport.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah,
such a
right.
nightmare.
So if sailing with no engine, your engine is your sail. So breaking
It's a bad day.
4 spar or breaking your mast
Yeah.
would have been your end too, or
Yeah.
tearing a sail or something.
Yeah.
So once I got to United States, then I had to bicycle to where I started, Bodega Bay. 5 years, 11 days later,
Right. How
we
does that
finished.
feel? Rolling in
It
5
was-
years later, 11 days, 12
Yeah,
hours.
there was a lot of relief, and Nancy
Mhm.
clearly was relieved as well. So
Mhm.
it was weight off my back. We again got pretty much no coverage. Outside Magazine did a feature article. Their reporter and editor came to Bodega Bay and then paced me across. Had paced me earlier in Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
where their headquarters are. He bicycled with me 3 days and did some interviews along the way, and they did a good job, a feature article
Cool.
about my journey. But they weren't going to write about it until I finished my circumnavigation, so that was kind of annoying to me.
Right.
By then, I had become the first person to have rowed 3 oceans and broken a bunch of records. 14 records were established. I became the first person to have accomplished a solo circumnavigation by human power. So, but at the beginning, none of these were my goals, clearly, but I had grown in the process. So I had to become the person who could establish historic firsts and Guinness World Records to finish the circumnavigation. So when you have such a big goal, I tell kids a lot when I do presentations, don't cut yourself short. If you have such big dreams, then you have limited time. You have to move quickly, and each step you take is going to be noteworthy in its own right. So it was not any different for me. Each step I took became a record, really.
Yeah.
Across the oceans, across the continents.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not done yet. Since then, I rode from Monterey Bay to Hawaii with Louis Bird.
Yeah, I
son of
saw
Peter
that.
Bird.
That's a great story in itself. And
Yeah, he wanted to understand his father. Peter
Right.
Bird was lost at sea again in '96, which was an odd year. Both Huron and Peter Bird were lost that year, while he was trying to row from Vladivostok to California.
northern
and-
high latitude route.
Yeah,
Right.
he lived in the Russian River Valley, and his circle of friends, Kenneth Crutchlaw, the founder of Oceanorian Society, had set up Oceanorian Society to promote Peter's exploits. And that's how that was the original idea. And then just started servicing everyone, became an adjudicator for the Guinness Book of World Records too. And Kenneth used to live in the Russian River Valley as well.
Hmm.
He used to be a former journalist. So that's how it all started. And his circle of friends, dating way back to when he had left from San Francisco to row to Australia, became my instant circle of friends. So when I got to Bodega Bay, all of them showed up to greet me back in also. Logistics became easier that way.
That's great.
And they're still friends, still my
Yeah.
circle of friends. And Louis then got introduced to ocean rowing this way. He wanted to understand his father, and he wanted to live that same experience.
Yep.
And even made a documentary about it recently.
I have to check that
About
out. Where
this
do we
row.
find that?
So he had come to the starting line at Monterey Bay of the Great Pacific Race in 2016, but his partner had to have an operation. I think he came down with appendicitis or something.
Yeah, this is a
I can't-
last minute
I
second thing that you get sort of called a week prior to the race.
Yeah,
Right.
Kenneth had died that winter, and Tatiana, his wife, came, and they held a brief, small ceremony on the San Francisco Bay that he loved so much to spread his ashes. And Louis went there to be in that ceremony, and my wife was representing the family, and they got introduced. And Louis, by then, had no partner. So the suggestion came up saying, would you row this with me to Hawaii? We got 10 days to go. What do you have? What you got? We had to scramble to get the medical kit together, the food together, the whole 9 yards. Everything that was missing had to be roped in at the last minute. So I got really busy very quickly, and off we went and broke the course record for doubles, the pairs, classic pairs.
You probably broke two records there: the getting ready for the trip and the
Yeah.
trip itself.
And the trip itself, yes.
Wow.
So I basically, there were a lot of emotional moments there. I had to hold space for him to grieve
Sure.
and deal with the experience. And basically, it was a union with his father.
Good on you.
All the years of
I'll bet.
grief came out pouring at times, and I made sure that the boat got to Hawaii, and the mother didn't get the dreaded second phone call.
Sure. Beautiful
So
story.
I did my job, and he went home with a Guinness certificate. That was great.
That's incredible.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we can get him on the show. I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so now, the Six Summits Project, a never-ending saga.
Yeah. Okay.
Like-
Let's go ahead. I wanna flesh some of these first parts out with you. I have some questions. I'm looking at this route, and
It's menacing. It's
it
not
is,
easy.
man. You're
It's not-
taking on. I think this is going to be your hardest ocean passage to date. It's my guess, but
It's not trivial.
yeah. Now
So,
that said, when I contacted you a few weeks back, I had just read your blog. You were in the midst of a rebuild. You were going to rebuild your old boat, get it ready for the voyage. It now looks like you've turned to just going back to the old boat and using that for the
I was
passage.
going to boat. That was going to be composite.
Right.
It was going to be a composite vessel, more survivable, more
Stronger
with
for the
more creature
journey.
comforts, all that.
Yeah.
Because I did have concern of typhoons and such, and I have no
And
sponsors.
valid concerns.
I have no sponsors. I was running out of time, and each time I hemmed and hawed about, are we going to pull money out of our savings again? The timeline slipped another 2-3 weeks, and it just became untenable. I had to pull the plug on the new boat build.
Right.
So went back to, let's use the plywood boat, let's harden it, let's refurbish it. That's where we are now.
Yeah, what are you
now
doing?
Now that we pulled everything out of it and down to hatches,
Mm-hmm.
it's still not ready, and I'm just getting very anxious at this point.
Mhm.
So yeah, this anxiety is going to keep building until I start rowing. The goal is to launch out of San Francisco on Earth Day, April 22nd, if I can meet that deadline,
Bodega Bay?
weather
Or,
permitting.
Bodega Bay
No,
or
San Francisco Bay, Aquarium of the Bay.
Okay.
Weather permitting, I could probably leave at the end of April. If I find again strong onshore winds, we're going to reconsider. I'm not married to leaving from San Francisco. The only nice thing about it is we have a partnership in the works. We haven't signed the agreement yet. I'm waiting for them to get back to me with Aquarium of the Bay. And they are going to be supporting this. I want them to become our education partner.
Far out.
So they're going to have an enhanced tracking page. They're going to take my data, and they are going to take my blog and images and videos that I may send and work in that flow. Additional information that is going to be context and location
Can you
sensitive.
give me their name again?
Have
Your
give people
partnership?
something.
What's their name again?
Aquarium of the Bay.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bay Ecotarium. If you go to bayecotarium.org, I believe it was.
Okay. And this is
Ecotarium.
you're going to
They run more than one facility. The aquarium is one of them. Aquarium of the Bay.
Okay.
all right.
And they are located on Pier 39 on Embarcadero.
So this is the start. This is the
Columbia
start on Earth
Coast.
Day. This is the continuation of your sixth summit project.
Yes.
Yeah. So Janet.
So moving forward with that, how does let's talk about your book first, right? You have a book, Journey of a Lifetime. Can you tell us a little bit about it, and where can we, our audience can find it?
It's a picture book, actually. It's a coffee table book that I had assembled.
Cool.
This book came together as an offering of our Kickstarter campaign for our documentary. And if people donated a threshold amount, they would get this book.
Okay. Oh, that's
as
cool.
well. It started as let's do a 30-page picture book, and then it's turned into a 100-page thing. I said, why not do a good job with it? So it's got a nice amount of pictures and the basic information that tells a story with larger fonts, so kids can enjoy that as much as adults.
All right.
So I made it not tied to the documentary specifically. It became a book on its own right, and it's available at our website, erdeneruc.com.
Okay. We'll
And erdeneruc.com. If you go there, then under about books, I believe you will find the link. So I can.
We'll throw a screenshot up in the post production.
Yeah.
How does someone help out on your continuing Sixth Summit effort?
Yeah.
Is it the same website?
Yeah.
Again, erdeneruc.com. On the homepage, you're going to see Learn More, Take Action.
Okay.
Right off the start. When you go to Take Action, it says tell everyone about it and then how you can donate. And we have the nonprofit 501c3 nonprofits around and over that can receive donations from corporate donors as well as private. And so it'll be tax deductible in the States. And then I also have a Facebook campaign running. Facebook doesn't charge any fees to receive those contributions, and that also is running through and a GoFundMe.
Okay.
So we have 3 channels available to contribute somehow. It's under the Take Action. If you go to erdeneruc.com, you will see this big rowboat picture that says Take Action, and you click that, or the donate button, it'll take you to that page. Under the About menu item, you see a list of things, and under there it says books, and the books has 1 book under it. Because there was always the talk that I should write a book, and kept putting it off. I kept putting it off, and
it's hard to do.
It is a lot of big commitment. And to tell you, I had a bit of a negative thought pattern taking roots. I just didn't want to pour my heart into yet another project that will not get covered or sold or get traction. So 14 Guinness World Records and a whole circumnavigation later.
Here we go again.
I finished the circumnavigation with a defiant attitude. I finished it despite everybody. And that was my mindset at the end. Whether or not that was justified or whether or not I should have allowed that to happen, we can argue about that all day long. But that was the reality. And I didn't want that frustration and anger pour into the pages. It just is.
Sure.
And And I feel like I never got to celebrate my accomplishments. Had the reception been different, had my attempts to get speaking engagements or documentary or book deal, whatever, been fruitful, I would have, of course, had a different mindset, different approach, different outlook on life. And it got to be a very dark space mindset after the circumnavigation. I felt like I don't belong here, I gotta go. But then I had spent all my savings and Nancy had had enough too. I couldn't leave to demonstrate mastery, if you will, out there.
I can't
so I
imagine.
felt trapped.
I can kind of
very
imagine
dark
actually,
period.
like when we go to sea and we travel and we live life sort of what's outside the normal box, and then coming back into society, it's quite a different place, and it's hard to adjust. I don't know what the term is for that, but it's quite difficult for me.
Yeah, well, I call it the post-expedition blues.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah, I think this is true.
And it's a real thing. It happens.
Sure.
You transition. And then the way that I snapped out of it was essentially by getting physical again, working out regularly, and
Focusing
and
on
starting
you.
to plan new things. And
Yeah.
so now I would like to row from San Francisco across the Pacific Ocean, make my way to mainland China. I just cannot go there now because the Chinese embassy consulate in San Francisco said their visa office is closed. They're not issuing visas right now. So they said, go scram, come back when we're open. They wouldn't even talk to me. If I make it to Hong Kong directly, I don't have to have a visa. I can get a visa on arrival.
Yeah.
So at this point, the alternate plan is to beeline for Vietnam.
Okay.
Da Nang or someplace, because the currents want to go there anyway, and the winds want to go there anyway, and possibly it'd be the easiest path.
I want to talk about that route. You know, I've looked at it a few times now, and I'm going to pull up.
Windy.
Yeah, well, it's
And
it's
currents.
amazing. So somewhere around Micronesia, I'm going to try and do a screen share with you. See, if I can do this.
If you go to windy.com and look at the currents, you're going to see this big ugly eddy just northwest of Philippines.
Yeah.
Well,
just west side of Luzon Strait.
let's just look at today for a second.
Yeah.
Give me a second here.
We're really looking forward
This
to
is interesting
Oh, yeah.
today, and let's just call it a year from now. Today, this is probably when
Yeah.
you're approaching Hong Kong, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So let's look
And
at
I
that.
am getting screen grabs every day.
Okay, so here we are. Tell me when you can see that.
I can.
Okay, this is where we're sitting at today. This is
Windfinder. Okay.
Yep, this is in our little town. This is the bay. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but we're sitting in the middle of that bay there. So we're going to zoom out and sort of look at what's happening. This is the Philippines. Now, if you look at this, we're getting sort of, you're going to be coming across, I don't know which route you're going to take. Are you going to come on the outside of the Philippines, or are you going to come on the backside? But when I look at,
Yeah.
when
I'm
I
gonna
look,
have to rise. I'm gonna have to rise from Saipan, Guam, and maintain a path to find the north end of Philippines.
yeah, so the winds, what they call it now this time of year, it's the monsoon, of course, but
Yes.
they call it a Mihon.
So right now, as you can see, right now, just at the bottom of the screen,
Yeah,
right, there's Wednesday 310. There's a low trying to form right there.
right.
You see it?
Yeah.
That's gonna then probably get stronger and then find its way into the South China Sea.
We know it. We see it. They friggin' come here every month. Now, obviously, this is the next 2 months are the time that you want to be crossing. Probably January, February, March is that one window, but they still come. The seas still get big out
Yes.
here. And I'm looking, when you're coming across here, you're really going to be hit with side winds, right? Most of the time, it's going to be coming across your starboard side. How difficult is that?
So it is not easy. I would rather have winds coming up to about 45 to 60 degrees I can handle. Any more
Right.
than that, it gets to be a bit too much. It rocks the boat side to side, and then rowing becomes impossible. So I need to find a path and stay at about 50 15 north, and then work my way from Saipan, Guam area, and work my way north from there. And if I hold a steady path in that direction, the currents are going to pick up and help rise the boat in that direction also.
Right. Yeah, this
So
is-
I need to clear Philippines for sure, and I need to clear it with a good berth as well. If I get too close to Philippines, the currents and the riptides get really strong
Sure.
near Philippine Luzon Island. Luzon Strait north of there.
Mm-hmm.
I need to cross at about 21 north.
Okay.
And then if I hop on the Kuroshio current, that will take me north. It'll get rough with opposing winds. Clearly, that's not a fun period. And once I dive across the Luzon Strait at about 21 north, then I get into a big eddy. So do I have the option to share my screen?
Sure. Yeah. Let me see if I can do that. Give me a
It
second.
says disabled right
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Give me
So while he's pulling it up, does that? I think that answers the question that if you're gonna stop in the Philippines. So I think it's not.
No, I do not want to stop at Philippines. The issue is whenever I try to stop somewhere, I then take a chance of crashing my boat.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want to do that
That's the
unless I
dangerous.
absolutely have to.
Yeah.
How's that? Can you share your screen now? Does it work for you?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
So sharing windy at this point. You see it?
Yeah.
It's coming
yeah.
up.
So
Yep.
these are the winds, right? So here where it says Dededo, that's Guam.
Okay. And that's what is our longitude there? Yeah. You can.
So that's 15 north. That line that
Yeah,
cuts
yeah.
across Saipan is 15 north. So I would need to be coming and staying at 15, 16 north, and then beelining across, receiving the winds at about 60 degrees or so from the stern, rising up toward the north end of Philly. So I
Gotcha.
have to beat 20 north. To get
Yeah.
up
So
there.
you're gonna have to turn
So
north.
if you look at the forecast, it gets strong, and then it eases, and then it should turn more east northeast. You see,
Mhm.
that's typically
That's-
east northeast.
right.
Typically what I'm going to get.
That's what we
Right.
get.
So rising from the Dededo, I will be able to make that distance. As I come up here, I'm going to start to see Kuroshio current lifting my boat. So if I put a layer here of currents, that'll become more clear. So here are the currents, right? So as I come from
wow.
the east, I am going to get into this current here, and then popping, and then there's just east of where it says Basco. I have this big eddy forming east side of Luzon Strait.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Hop into that and then try to break free of it, run west, and then you see this big 200-mile eddy west of Luzon Strait. And then
Crazy.
wrap around that and come up to Hong Kong.
Whew.
That's a tall order with the northeast winds. That's just so that's flowing 2 knots
That
plus,
is incredible.
right? So
Yeah.
that's going to just grab my boat and do numbers on it. And I'm going to need to come and stay on the edge of it so I can break free on the west side.
Okay. That's it'll throw you in
And-
there. Yeah.
And that's the main goal here. And if you look at the winds again, the winds lighten as it gets to the other side. So
Yeah.
it wraps around to Vietnam. And so it may behoove me to, instead of aiming for Hong Kong, to aim for Vietnam. So if I could hit Da Nang with the currents running straight at it and the winds pointing in that general direction,
Mm-hmm.
I could probably aim for Da Nang. And Da Nang has nice facilities. So
Okay.
there's the current, there's the wind. And so looking into mid-March, it's getting lighter,
Yeah. It starts to pick up.
much
again.
stronger. But I can dive into any fishing port and just seek forgiveness because I didn't go to a port of entry.
Yeah. I don't
So
know.
that's
Chinese
so that's
forgiveness.
where the arrival is going to end up being. So right now, see, Hong Kong is getting direct winds. So if I get lucky, I might just break and go for it. But without a visa to China, I have a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with
so-
all the new restrictions with COVID, don't know what's going to be happening by that time. But
Yeah.
you know,
So if you look at the distances, it is about 2,000 miles from San Francisco to Hawaii.
yeah.
So if I were to bring up Google Earth, and then it is about 3,300 miles from there to Guam. And
My guess, will you find an island out here, depending upon your time and your schedule? And,
I would like to
Guam,
I would like to reach Guam in January. So I need to look at my pace, study this better. And if I have to take a break, I need to take it in Waikiki and take it early. So if I miss Waikiki, then I can keep going toward Guam or Saipan. But if I miss Guam, then I am in the typhoon alley, exposed, and I've gotten there too
that
soon.
would be a place if
So-
you can time that and just get it
Yeah.
right. That's the way to.
If I get to Guam, if I cross near the Marianas in January, I will be okay, I think. And then by March, I should be. So it's the distance from Google Earth is not coming up. And here it is. If I were to cross Luzon Strait by the beginning of March, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
So
Well, that strait there is infamous. It's really known for huge
the
typhoons and strong winds and currents.
yeah.
That strait there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So this is the direct line to Hawaii is 2,000 miles, 2,300 or so once you follow
Yeah.
the
So
flow. And then if you go from Hawaii,
that's
clear. So let's go from Hawaii to Marianas, Guam, right there. That's 3,400 miles, straight line.
so that's say that's 60. That's
So I need to look at my
120.
pace and
About
work that into my routine, my scheduling.
Right.
And then from Guam to 21 North, to pass through Luzon Strait is 1,400 miles. With the
So-
currents and winds going as they are, that's
40,
probably one
40,
month's time.
50 days.
So just about 40 days, I should be through there.
Yeah. Right.
And then once I get to the other side, then from there to Da Nang is about 827 miles, and that's going to be a fast trip, 20 days probably.
Right, that last part. Good luck there. I'm rooting for you. You're going to get some rough seas, guaranteed.
Yes.
But
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. And this is where, in February and March, this is where you get the typhoons forming. They jump over the Philippines and then get into the South China Sea.
Yeah.
They don't curve north toward the Okinawa and the Japan and so forth. That's later in the season. So this is not trivial. All of this is going to be a problem, a threat, and big risks.
Yeah.
So
on the boat, what did you do for strengthening? Did you put any extra bulkheads or compartments? Did you do any?
No. I'm going to put an additional rib along the cabin walls to strengthen that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I am adding a cable that will girdle the boats from the bow to the stern of the
Okay.
transom to hold it together, basically. And I'm going to deploy my power anchor
Yeah,
and drogue
Yeah.
from behind the boats. So when the bridle pulls on either side of the hull,
the whole boat takes
hold the boat, the whole boat will be held bow back rather than pulling the transom off.
Yeah, good idea.
So, and it goes through an eye at the bow, and that eye is where I would receive a tow if I have to. Then we don't pull the bow off. Same thing, it holds the whole boat
Yep.
together, right?
Yep.
So that girdling contraption is in the works right now,
All right.
and I am also going to deploy my Eruc and power anchor from the stern going forward. So my goal is to make sure that if a big wave comes and washes over the boat, breaks
Mm-hmm.
close to the boat, and then engulfs the boat, I don't have a bulkhead to receive that mass of water. My bow bulkhead is smaller than my cabin bulkhead,
Mm-hmm.
and the forces generated are going to be more tolerable if the bow bulkhead receives the washing
Sure.
water
Right.
rather than the big cabin bulkhead.
Mm-hmm.
If you let me
So,
grab
okay.
yeah,
So,
I
go ahead. Sorry.
you can ask your question. I'm just going to look for a quick picture here that I can share.
Yeah, that would be great. So, I'm just wondering, are you turning the boat around in that situation?
The this is my boat.
Oh.
So the boat is
Right.
24 feet long,
Mhm.
24 feet long, and the cabin bulkhead is huge. It has the main hatch,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's storage in the front. The deck is long. It was designed for 2 people. It has 3 rowing stations. I used the middle rowing station before. I'm now going to set it up so I can use the aft position so that I have better trim, better directional stability.
Yeah.
And I am going to, I used to receive the waves from the bow when I set up a pair anchor. So it was a
Right.
choice.
So you
to
spun the
stop.
boat around. Basically,
Yes.
you'd have to sit in a
Right.
storm, and then your cabin
Yeah.
house takes the wave, which is a big wall for the water to crash into.
Yes, if
Gotcha.
it did, that would be the case. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never had to before, but in this case, with real typhoon risk lurking, I don't want to do that. So
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
you see from the bow, there's this black line coming from the bow, the eye at the bow into my deck.
I see a line. Yep.
Over that yellow, I see that black thing.
Yep.
That is my strop
For
that
your
I
pair.
bring
for your drone.
onto the deck, and then that's accessible to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where I attach my power anchor or
Sure.
the road line for the actual hook for the bottom of the anchor as well.
Okay. That setup's going to change. It's going
And slept. The bow was light, and the bow got pushed around, and
yeah.
the boat would get whipped into alignment each time a wave passed. And it makes the experience quite rough, and it's abusive to the boat too. And I never knew when the bow would just rip off this boat. It's
And
plywood.
when you get to that situation, is it
Yeah.
how do you saying, hey, look, the anchor is going to cause damage? How do you retrieve the para anchor? Is it difficult at that point?
No, the para anchor has a trip line too, right?
Okay, so he pulls from the side or
this
opens
strop had a thinner accessory cord going to it, thinner line going to it,
Yeah.
maybe 6 millimeter line,
Mm-hmm.
and to the shackle. So this is only maybe, I don't know, 10 feet long, right? So then I had another 14-foot thinner line, 6 mil line going to it, that I used to bring that shackle back to the boat. But before that, though, I had the trip line. So the road line would go from the boat all the way to the para anchor. From at the apex of the para anchor, there was a floating line up to a little buoy.
Yeah.
From that fender, just any fender I had on board, I'd just tie that at the end of it.
Sure.
And then from that fender, I would bring a floating line back to the boat.
Yeah.
So when I then pulled on that floating line, it would collapse the dome of the para anchor,
Right. Pull
And
it
it
to
would
the
just-
side.
become this big long object that
Mhm.
dragged in the water. Yeah, it was a bit of work, but there was a pile of lines on deck. You just bring. Just
Mhm.
keep pulling the trip line in, bring that spare anchor on board, and then once the spare anchor is on board, then you bring the rest of the road line in, and the last thing to come on board is the strop.
Gotcha.
Wow.
And then you just basically tidy up the deck, tie everything on the deck, stack it so all the water from it drains. And I don't put things away wet as much as possible. Let the water drain off of it, and off I go rowing again. As soon as I turn the boat, the rudder's in the back. The trim is such that the bow is lighter. Again, it turns downwind and off it goes. So that's how I used to do it. Now I would like to have a strop reaching all the way around to the back of the boat and deploy it the same way.
Right. And
But I could not before because I had that rudder hanging in the back, and rudder would reach down at least a good 2 feet below the end of the transom.
sure.
So as waves passed, I don't have a sail or driving this boat forward, right?
Yeah, so it's
whenever I
it's
put something,
back and forth.
so the waves come, weigh the boat, and then on the top and back end of the boat, the wave, the boat gets launched like an arrow.
Yeah.
And each time it slows down. When it slows down, as the wave catches up, it bunches up the road line.
Right.
And then when it boat
It's
speeds up, it
huge.
just yanks on it. And
Yeah.
each time it does that, it takes one wrap around the rudder, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I never could deploy a proper drogue to gate
Yeah.
directional stability. I never could deploy a pair anchor from behind the boat either. So I'm getting rid of the old rudder design. So now a person I trust is building a cassette inside which there's going to be a blade,
Yep.
all built on a composite. The new contraption is going to be even lighter and possibly stronger than the old rudder,
Right.
and we'll be able to retract the blade up. So the blade will go down past the transom,
Mm-hmm.
and I will be pulling it up, so nothing will be past the transom. So as the line passes, nothing to catch there. It'll go away and engage in that case. So that's an improvement right there. And that will make the boat much more survivable. I don't have worries that the boat would survive a big storm. In the unlikely case that a wave would break over the boat and just rush past the boat,
It's huge
washing
amount
the
of
deck and
force.
everything, I will have the minimal exposure. And in that kind of a situation, of course, I have the EPIRB tied to my body.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah.
my PFD is on. I have prepared the life raft for immediate deployment. Knife is at hand to cut its line to get the valise out and just do what I have to do to transition should the boat fall apart. But of course, that's the worst case scenario. We don't even want to go there.
Stepping up to the lifeboat is not what you want to do. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great idea, for example. And then the other thought is, do you have any way to like size down the drogue? Like reefing your sail. I could imagine that could be helpful in some situations as well.
Para anchor is one size. It's a 3-meter one, I believe, or a 4-meter one, 12-foot weight. Here's it for antenna window. This is the para anchor.
Yeah.
.com offshore para anchor, and I have the 12-foot one, the big one. And the storm drogue that they have is called shark drogue. It's this thing contraption. So I will be able to deploy this.
Okay. All right.
If I really want to slow the boat down, I can put the para anchor out. If I want directional stability, I will put out the shark drogue.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're going to use that shark drogue a lot in some situations, just to keep the stability and steer the boat in certain situations.
Yeah. And this time I am also looking to install a tiller pilot.
Okay,
And I am going to make sure that the boat remains stable downwind and can steer itself
Right.
and point
That's
downwind.
going to
So
be helpful.
a tiller pilot, not a wind
You
weather
can,
vane.
yeah, you can trim the boat
But
out with both the drogue and the tiller pilot at the same time.
yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So let's get moving. You're gonna get across there when you get to Hong Kong. Hopefully, we come visit you on landfall. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be nice. So if I go to Vietnam, I would bicycle to Hong Kong probably because our support team is there. Ocean Recovery Alliance is concerned about plastics in our oceans. So I will be talking about environmental issues, sustainability, and plastics problem that we are creating in our oceans. Everything that the mass of human population creates for the rest of the creatures that live and share. I am going to be sharing information about all of that. And Ocean Recovery Alliance was founded and led by Doug Woodring now, who lives in Hong Kong.
Okay, I saw
He's
that.
helping me. And Maritime Museum of Hong Kong is looking to partner with us, translate all the blog entries, so that we have expectation that I would get there at some point.
Yep.
But if I now have to reconsider and go to Vietnam, then I owe it to them to bicycle from Vietnam, where I make landfall, to Hong Kong, show my face, and say, I have arrived as promised.
Yeah.
And then from there, bicycle to Tibet. Right?
Okay, let me pull
Because
that
I'm going
up.
to go climb.
I'm curious
Now I'm
about
going to go
this.
climb Everest.
Yeah, you stud. Hang on for a second.
Attempted, at least, right?
Yeah.
This is assuming there is no issue with funding.
Right.
I can't see my screen very well. 1 second.
It's
There
good.
we go.
All right.
Screen 2, it must be here. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah. So here we are. I was curious. This I just looks like a hell of a route just to get to. You're going to go across Tibet.
Yeah, probably pass through Kunming.
Okay.
And then head to Tibet. There, Kathmandu. I mean,
Yeah,
not Kathmandu.
so- This means most likely you're climbing the north side.
Yeah, the north side.
Yeah.
I will stay on the north side, approach it from the Tibetan side.
Right.
That's cool.
Wow. Have you really looked at this route? What's the crux? What's the crux move? It's incredible territory you're going to move through. Major mountains, all kinds of stuff you're going to come across here. What's the crux overland part through here?
Overland,
Yeah.
mountain passes, cold, lack of supplies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just have to go figure it out one phase at a time. Next pass, next mountain, next valley, whatever. You just have to work it. I cannot make these decisions this
From
far. in
afar,
advance.
that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you get the beta on
can't.
the area?
You can't.
Yeah.
You have to have someone who has covered the same distance in the same manner, and then
Right.
give you all the beta, which is non-existent. So that's been the story of my life. In all my circumnavigation, I ended up pushing my rowboat into waters that hadn't been rowed before. So that
Right.
way, I became the first person to have rowed from Australia all the way to mainland Africa, and same thing from Namibia to Venezuela. That hadn't been done before. People went to Brazil. I was the second person to have rowed the South Atlantic that way,
Mm-hmm.
to mainland South America, and then Caribbean to Gulf of Mexico. That was a first. I mean,
Wow.
people hadn't done that. I
Yeah, you
did
get
it
some. You
because I had
got
to.
some big
Otherwise,
territory
people
ahead
do
of
the
you.
trade routes. Yeah,
So on Everest,
yeah, trade routes are easier to do.
right? Yeah, you got some beta behind it, and you know what's happening. So when you get to Everest, you're going to do the north route. Janet.
I would like to go up the Hornbein Couloir if I can manage.
Okay. Janet traversed Everest from China to Nepal back in 2007. Do you have any
Wow,
questions?
Nice.
You have any questions for?
Why don't I shut up and she tells her story?
Oh, it's very
Yeah.
exciting.
Which route did you do? Northridge?
Yes. Yeah. So we we traversed. We climbed from North Tibet and then summited and went back down in the south Nepal side.
Wow,
So it was
that's
a
impressive.
The epic way
So-
to do.
Do you want to know how the name Around and Over came about?
Yes, of course.
So as I was tracing my finger across the office, remember, I'm daydreaming, and it's easy to push your finger across maps, and
Yeah.
ideas come to you, right?
Right.
So I would say I would bike, row, and then bike, get to Tibet, and then climb up over the top and down,
That's the best
and
way.
go.
Yeah.
So I would go around the world and over the top, right? So it was just Everest at that time until the accident happened with Huron. Then things transformed into the Six Summits Project. So Around and Over name stuck with me way back, maybe in 97, if not 98, early on. So when it was time to set up the nonprofit 501c3, the name was ready, Around and Over. It's got hyphens and stuff in
Right.
it. It's a stupid name, very hard to spell out, and the emails we get so long, the addresses, but it's there, Around and Over.
Yeah.
that's
So
cool.
that's how the name came about.
cool.
Very cool.
So
I wasn't gonna let that go.
yeah.
So,
So-
if
Janet got the right idea there.
she did, and it's very
Impressive.
rare. You know, she did it with
Oh, yeah.
2 other girls.
With our Philippine team, yeah, we were 3 women, but we're a
Nice.
really Philippine team, and it's a record, first women traverse in the history of Everest, and I think it still
you
holds
go.
until
Still.
now.
Awesome, impressive. That's such so cool.
Yeah, it is.
So now we found a connection with Janet.
yeah, we
the
got a lot in
Everest.
common here, our family. and you.
Other than the sailing and
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
season.
Well, so who's gonna be with you? Who was your outfitter, your guides in Everest?
We don't have any of that. I'm not going to worry about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Summit Climb probably would arrange the permits and such, and we would be independent. Another friend is interested in joining me, so it could be a 2-person team, a small team.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a big production out of this. The more people are involved, the more logistics
Sure.
become an issue. Just organizing it just scales up to a big moving an army kind of feel. So I'd like to keep this small as much as possible and give it a good, hearty attempt. And so what I am hoping will happen is I will get to South China Sea and make landfall sometime in March 2022. And then from my point of landfall, I would come back to United States, gather the high altitude gear, arrange permits, coordinate with a partner that will come with me, and just make a big noise about, hey, we need funding for this also, fundraising,
Yeah.
and then return with my bicycle and trailer and road gear and start bicycling from my point of landfall to Tibet. That has to happen the summer of 2022.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
So that I would be in position to climb in the post-monsoon season of 2022 from
So-
Tibet side.
Yeah. Good time of year.
Once that is done, then in, December, January winter conditions, I would have to find my way through Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan,
Yeah, I was
into
looking at
Russia.
that. This area, and how does that look for you when you look at it's sort of a lot of turmoil in some of those countries, and
Yeah.
also we have a friend, Carl Bushby, who's trying to walk around the world. It gets
Yeah.
really hard for him to cross borders. How does that look for you? What's some of the
I
hard,
don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So at this point, I have no plans, nothing. I have to get across the big blue threshold first
Yeah.
before I can make any plans.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't worry about getting into Kyrgyzstan and whatnot until I have reached Tibet and attempted
Yeah.
Everest. I mean, there's so much
Yeah, you got
upfront
Right.
front loading in this that you can't really worry too far into the distance.
Sure.
What you do is you say, that is my eventual goal. So I would like to, instead of passing through Turkmenistan and such heading into Iran and approaching from the south, which might be more forgiving. I'll have to decide that when the time comes. But the current thought is to weather the winter conditions through Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan.
Wow. Yeah.
If there are mountain passes in the way and snow is going to be an issue, I might not be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically work my way into Russia to the border with Georgia and the Caucasus and attempt or climb Elbrus. Elbrus is not a very difficult mountain. You got ski
You can ski down it.
facilities. Yeah, ski facilities 2/3 of the way up the mountain, if I read that correctly.
Yeah.
So it's not an inaccessible mountain. It should be manageable. And my father's climbing club is chomping at the bit to send climbers to join me
Nice.
to do Elbrus, which is within reach. So March 2023, I'm hoping I would be climbing Elbrus.
Stepping back, real quick question. What happens if you, like you said, Everest is always an attempt. And let's just say, hypothetically, something goes wrong. I mean, anything can happen, and you don't have a successful season. What will you do? Will you wait it out and try again a second year?
I think putting my life on hold, beating my head against Everest's
Because you would be climbing in the fall
would
season.
not be,
You could wait.
So it would need to happen. I mean, I could spend the winter and attempt it again in spring, perhaps.
Right.
I don't know at this time. It depends on funding.
Sure.
And if I did wait for spring season, then I would bicycle across Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan in summer, which is actually more appealing because then I don't have to worry about mountain passes and snowbound roads stopping me. So that is a very valid option.
Okay.
At this point, again, it's all to be found, to be determined later.
Sure.
TBD.
Yeah.
And my hope, if the initial plan pans out, March 2023, I would be climbing Elbrus.
Right.
2023 is the 100th anniversary of Turkish Republic's founding, so it'll be the 100th year celebrations going on. So I will be passing through Turkey.
Cool.
With that. So that spring I will be passing through and going to Portugal, to Portimao.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get there that summer, and first week of November or so I should launch from Portimao, get out on the Atlantic Ocean and work my way down the Moroccan
This is a
coast.
different rowing route as well. This is not one that you typically see.
Portimao departure has been done. People have gone to South America, to Guyanas, typically. Some have left in, like Jason Lewis, for example, with Stevie Smith. They left from Portimao, I believe, or right next to it. There are a couple ports there. Lagos is right there. Anyway, you go from there, and they went to Florida with their pedal boat from that location. Yeah. So it's not an unheard of thing. Mm-hmm. It's easier departure than Lisbon for sure, because Lisbon gets a lot of southwesterly winds. And if you go to Lagos, to the south end, you get a bit of an eddy in the wind, and then you can drop south from there and break free. Mm-hmm. There's a little wind shear that happens, and along the African coast, you just run down along with the current. So that's a possibility. So October, November, I would launch from there, aim for Brazil or Guyanas, whichever the winds allow. Guyana's probably going to be more realistic.
Right.
Then you don't have to deal with the river mouths and Amazon and big tides and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a big bar out front, eh?
And then I would work my way down south to Aconcagua, figure out the seasons for that. And then from the Aconcagua, work my way north.
That'd be an incredible
through
journey.
The Darien Gap.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to know. How's that?
Oh, the hell is that going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, Colombian government and the FARC guerrillas have signed a peace treaty, and there would be less chance of being kidnapped.
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
my
the upside,
God.
right?
Yeah.
That's a notorious section.
We and we interviewed Carl Bushby. I don't know if you know his story, but
Yeah, he did a special forces version
Yeah.
of it.
totally.
Totally out of the
Oh
movies.
God,
No, it's more than out of
he
the
had
movies.
yeah he had a little wire saw that was worked into his shirt collar or something around his
Oh yeah,
neck that
survival
he
gear.
could
He was all
to
special
cut
forces.
things out if he needed
Yeah.
to
Yeah, man, his
free
stories.
himself.
But that journey, he did that. Fuck, I think it was. I'm guessing 18 years ago. So it was quite different then.
It's quite different then. Oh.
Hey.
Yeah, the Darien Gap would have been 2004, 2005.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact year, but that took him, in his journey, he's got some amazing stories, but that took him
And
like,
then walked across the Bering Strait with Dimitri. Dimitri is in Seattle.
right. Okay, yeah. So,
And he's doing his version of an around the world journey.
yep, he is.
He paddled across the Strait of Hormuz and then bicycled across Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
He hasn't stopped. He just goes piecemeal, and
Yep.
he worked his way all the way to Jordan, Egypt now.
This is
He's done
Dimitri.
with Saudi Arabia for sure. Dimitri Kiefer, yeah.
Yeah.
Dimitri.
He was-
That's Carl's partner.
Yeah, his partner on the Bering Straits, right?
So they're doing a different version of this. So Dimitri is trying to find his way to southwestern Africa
Is
to
he
get
in?
across to
And you're
South
saying
America.
he's in Seattle.
Yes.
Do you talk to
And
him?
because of COVID concerns, his plans have been turned upside down, and he's still
Yeah.
whittling at it.
Yeah.
He is going to get it done, but you know how these things go.
Yeah, it's a big project. Yeah, if you are in touch with him, definitely send us contact. We'd like to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't I go ahead and get you his contact information now,
Cool.
and I'll just write it to you.
No, don't put it over the air. I don't know if that's a good idea. We're recording this. Send it to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
Whatever.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. Sorry, what?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, that was
Yeah.
bug.
So the Darien Gap, you're gonna have to. That'll be an interesting part.
Yeah,
for sure.
we're looking forward to it.
And then work my way up north through Central America, Mexico, into U.S., where I started. So this is going to end up being a circumnavigation by Empower,
Right.
if I have my way, if funding is not an issue. I have no qualms about stopping any time along the journey. Nancy has put up with a lot. I'm not going to push this as aggressively as I had the first one around.
Yeah.
First time around. This Pacific crossing is going to be testing our resolve
Yeah.
beyond reason, really. This typhoon risk is very high. and
It's
I don't
real.
like it.
Yeah.
And so when I make landfall on the other side, I think after having established 6 more Guinness World Records, advancing my career totals, which are already the Guinness records, like days at sea, solo 844, that's going to advance the day I get out.
Yep.
934-day career total in rowing, including the double rows like with Louis.
Wow.
Peter Bird's record stands at 937.
So you're gonna surpass
So,
that here real soon.
3 days later, I will take over that record. When I was on the Pacific, he held the longest duration at sea as a solo rower by 304 days.
Right.
And so at 312, when I took this record, I got a congratulatory note from his mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was very sweet. I never got to meet the mother, but that would be grandmother of Louis, of course.
Sure.
I got to meet Louise' mother, Peter's wife,
Mm-hmm.
at the time.
That's
So, yeah, it's a small world, and you get to meet these people. It's a small community, these ocean rowers. And then these records happen one after another. It adds a story and a meaning to it all. So for me to meet match the commitment of Peter Bird is a good thing.
Good on you.
And I probably will end up being the first person to have rowed more than 1,000 days.
Yeah,
of
that's
his
coming
life.
up first season.
So I might get another certificate for that.
There's
Who knows?
a lot of people
It's,
going to struggle
it's up
catching
to it's up to Guinness to be creative with these
Yeah.
certificates.
Yeah.
Sometimes they break it down to silly levels.
Yeah,
But he'll be the first mainland to mainland crossing of the.
that's good.
Yeah, so that first mainland to mainland crossing added to its the solo courier total days, 844 advanced. Overall total courier days, 934, surpassing 937. The miles rowed, solo and overall, are mine already. So I will advance those on the day I start rowing. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's 5 guaranteed, assuming I make it across to mainland
Well,
Asia.
yes, amazing feats, amazing achievements. And
Mhm.
what advice would you give someone who is contemplating a new adventure, be it a new job, expedition, or whatever makes them happy?
So first of all, for any adventure to happen, stop talking and start taking action.
You're
so
the man.
You need to start moving with intention in toward that start line, and 80% of the work is going to get done by the time you reach the starting line. And after that, there's relief, there's joy, you're doing what you have always wanted to do. So first, we have to recognize the dream. We cannot suppress it. We cannot talk ourselves out of it. If we want this done, we need to latch onto it. We need to allow it to take root. And then we need to protect it from all those people who are going to want to stump all over it and then bury it. So they need to be kept away. Your dream has to have breathing room, and it has to take roots. It needs to sprout, it needs to grow, it needs to turn into this big trunk that nobody can take down, right? So that's the dream. That's the dream that takes root. It has to happen. Without it, nothing happens. And then commitment, right? So you have to be willing to commit. That means setting priorities. So money, time, relationships, all of those have to be applied toward this dream. So I say that my dream, my circumnavigation, was such a big project that it became my rudder and my compass.
Yep.
For the 5 years that I was on the road. It just defined everything. It just streamlined everything into this channel. And then once it was done, that was gone, right? So there was this turmoil.
The rudder and the
in my
compass was you're sort of floundering around in the
Yeah.
sea.
Right. So I didn't have that again. And I had gotten used to it and conditioned to be living in that mode. All of a sudden, it was a different existence.
Yeah.
And then we make excuses. We say, well, I have children, I have a wife, I have a mortgage, I have,
Yeah.
career.
There's 1,000.
So yeah, we can come up with a lot of excuses. So instead of finding excuses, we need to find solutions. We need to find ways. And all those people that we think need us actually really don't. That's a narcissist in each of us coming out. I am necessary. I am needed. Everybody needs me. Therefore, I can't do what I want. So now I'm turning the whole thing on its head, right?
Yeah.
So when you say, I'm a responsible person, I am a father figure, I need to stay home and I need to feed my family and my kids need me, I wouldn't let them grow without me. You can come up with all these nice stories. They're all valid. But at the same time, if you say, this is important, I need to do this, we're going to use this to raise awareness about plastics in our oceans, whatever, and I have this journey planned. It's going to be dangerous, but I know what I'm doing. It won't be too terribly bad. If it gets that bad, I know how to survive it. We'll manage. Just hang in there. They will want us to be out there. So I think we actually are giving up a big support base if we use them as an excuse not to leave. Once we leave, they become our biggest supporters. My father asked me, what about your career? And I gave him my answer, and then we never looked back. He's one of my biggest cheerleaders.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you're taking a different route than he did, almost the opposite in a way. You know, the establishment, and then you're sort of way
Yeah.
out there. Yeah,
He was the career guy.
yeah. So
Pushed it until retirement.
I can say that you have, I mean, for quite some time since I've been talking to you and trying to get some time to come on the show, I've done quite a bit of reading about your adventures. And, you know, Janet and I are really full-on explorers. We've been doing this kind of stuff our lives, and, you know, we really have settled down, and especially now since COVID. We were guiding, you know, we guide in the Himalayas, and we also guide here island boat expeditions in the Philippines. And that life has changed since last year, March, COVID. But I can tell you sparked a light in us. And yesterday we were actually sitting down talking about, okay, we can build one of these rowboats, family rowboats. Well, for our whole family, we're going to design this thing. I said, we can do this. We can build it here. I'm like, Doug, we can build the thing. But I have this idea that we're going to put some gel batteries, kind of make a small keel in there, and then we got a couple rowing stations and maybe 2 cabins front and back like yours is, but a little bit more roomy, I'm guessing. We said, okay, we'll just paddle the Philippines. We'll start there, island to island. But we started talking about it yesterday.
Our
So
kids can row.
Yeah, right. How many kids do you have?
we have 2. We have our son. He's getting big now. He's 14 years old. His name's Himalaya.
Yeah.
Nice.
And he's a big boy. He's bigger than me. He's weighing in at 180 pounds now.
Yeah.
And 14. And we're going to the gym. We're doing a lot of MMA now.
Uh-huh.
And then our daughter, she's 2.5 years old, and her name is Amihan. And do you know Amihan, what that means?
Mihan, what's the meaning?
It is the seasonal wind right now.
It's the
When you come
northeast
across
wind.
here, it's
Uh-huh.
the northeast wind, the cool northeast wind. It's this monsoon they call Amihan.
Mihan, okay.
Yeah. So, and she's lovely. She's
And that's the name in Tagalog then?
Yeah, it's Filipino term of northeast wind. We call it amihan. And then the south west is habagat. So there are
yeah, you got the 2 seasons.
amihan and habagat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, we're looking at bringing the family out. We want to do something, a big family. We want to keep that sort of
Yeah.
dream alive and keep going. And,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Keep
I
moving.
want to thank you for, we want to thank you for your
Well-
time. We want to thank you for all your great stories.
Yeah.
We really want to stay in touch with you. And
I wanted to thank you as well for the opportunity to tell the story. So
yeah.
I hope your listeners will enjoy it.